Bill Belichick trending on Twitter as he opened up training camp today with a press conference. Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe. He's been with the Boston Globe since 1981. See, he's been around a few press conferences there in Boston. Showed up today to ask him about Malcolm Butler. Bill tried to turn the page, and as you'll hear, Dan will not only use the do your job line that Belichick is known for to inoculate himself from getting the usual rote, we've moved on to Cincinnati answer from Belichick. But he fires off not one, not two, not three, but I believe a record for Bill Belichick press conference, 4 follow-up questions. In case you missed it, here it is in all its splendor.
Bill, I know you're all about this year, and we all understand that about this year.
That's right.
And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask about last year.
Yeah,
and
last year's last year. I'm not focused on last year. Yeah.
What about the fact that everywhere we go, folks want to ask about Malcolm Butler? I mean, sports coaches, players, university. You're a sports fan.
Yeah, we've talked about that. That's multiple months ago.
Is there going to be any more explanation about why he didn't play?
Focused on training camp.
Would you do it any differently?
Training camp? Well, we're getting started. We're working on that right now. We'll do it the best we can.
And does it matter to you? Do you care that the fans want to know more about this?
I'm focused on doing the best that I can for the 2018 New England Patriots. That's my job. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I've always done in the past. You know, every day that I've coached here, I've done the best that I could for this football team, and I'll continue to do that. And right now, my focus is on the 2018 season, not 2017, not 2014, not 2007, not 2004, not 2001, not 2000. I'm not focused on any of those seasons. They're done.
And for this season's team, is it important for you to address the Malcolm Butler thing with your team?
It's important for me to have a good season in 2018. I'm going to do everything I can to do that. Do the best that I can for our football team. That's my job, and that's my responsibility. That's what I'm going to try to do. Hopefully you can respect that, but maybe not.
There we go. Dan Shaughnessy joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Dan?
I'm good, Rich. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, does that suffice for your cardio for the day, too, Dan? Does that is that your workout?
It's like 15 rounds of Tyson, just a minute and 35 seconds. You know, it's like you got to be ready. And
yes.
I respect Bill, and I appreciate that he let it go back and forth a little bit. It was sort of the expected outcome, I guess you could say. I still think it's important to try to get him on record.
Well, I mean, he didn't really, I guess, answer it. Right. The question, but you did at the end ask the $1 million question: is how might it manifest itself in that locker room? Are you hearing that there are some people in that locker room who are still suiting up for the Patriots, who are questioning to this day what in the world happened with Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl?
Well, there's been stuff, you know. I mean, everybody's been running at the players for 5.5 months now, and there's been guys saying, yeah, we wish we knew, and you know, back and forth. Brady was very cryptic about it. One of his paid gigs with Jim Gray where he just said, yeah, I wish he'd played and wish we knew, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that, you know, that's why when Bill, you know, of course, the great dodge is to say, I'm just talking about this year. So I tried to say, well, it's part of this year. And do you plan to address this with the people in the room about this year? Because this is the first one, Rich, in like 19 years where there's been some serious pushback from the devoted fan base, the "In Bill We Trust" people. That has been shaken a little bit because of this decision. I mean, he dressed the guy. They got gashed. There was arm tackling going on when they couldn't, you know, even at his worst, Malcolm Butler can tackle. Everybody knows that. And so, yeah, it just, the whole thing doesn't wash, and it's never been explained. And I'm not saying he's got to reveal everything. I just think it stays out there. It's going to stay there. It's one of the great unsolved mysteries, like I said, like Stonehenge and you know, Lost City of Atlantis and those things. I mean, we don't know. It doesn't add up, and it does not appear to have been in the spirit of doing their best to win the game.
And in terms of the great unknown, that's a void that usually does get filled with rumor, innuendo, conjecture. What's the best guess that you have as to why that did, in fact, happen months later, Dan?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, you talk to people that work for the networks, and, you know, people make runs at Matt Patricia. They make runs at Butler. I mean, you know, the existing defensive backfield of the Patriots. and no one's really getting anywhere. And hey, like I said, everything's been put forth as a theory. He beat up Steve Belichick, or he was weed, or a concert, or curfew, or he tampered with the elections in 2016. I mean, they've tried everything to pin on this guy, and nothing has really stuck to this point. So the totality is we don't know, but the man played 98% of the snaps during the regular season, and then is benched for the entire Super Bowl except one special teams play.
And then Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe back here on the Rich Eisen show. You were part of the media crew as well that was trying to crack Belichick on answering what Jenny Vrentas revealed in her MMQB profile of Jimmy Garoppolo, that Belichick texted him congratulations after every win that Garoppolo had last year. That's 5 texts for the San Francisco 49ers, and to say that maybe he's still like John Cusack with that boombox outside his window. Is there any there on that front? He kind of dodged in the same way, Dan.
Yeah, the Globe's Ben Bolin tried that route later on in the presser, and Bill didn't deny it, because Ben said, "Is it true?" and then followed up with something, and Bill did not answer the "is it true" part. He just said he's not thinking about 8 months ago or whatever. I mean, this would be great if we could all live our lives and say, "Well, I'm not thinking about what happened before. It's just about now." I mean, that would be a great way to go through life, because you'd never be accountable for anything except what's ahead. Fresh start all the time. And again, he's just a football coach. It's just football. But he did not deny that. It strikes me as a lot and uncharacteristic, and it's coming from Garoppolo's parents. So I don't think there's any reason for them to not be truthful on that. And it just speaks to certain, I mean, the best face you can put in this is that it appears that, Bill he worked on the line of succession here. He got the next guy, he drafted, developed the next guy, was ready, and Tom kind of outlived the succession plan, which is nobody's fault, but it brought things to a head when it wasn't expected that would happen, and they had to make a decision, and they went with the tried and true and steady old guy.
Well, I mean, I guess then when it all comes down to it, I mean, Belichick is, when it all is said and done, a human being, right? I mean, if this was, say, Dick Vermeil sending a text to a former player who he traded, we'd be like, well, that's Vermeil just reaching out to players. I mean, maybe Belichick does have that warm side in him, and he really does appreciate Jimmy G, and he's a handwritten note guy for a lot of people too. But I guess then it all comes down to this: is what does this all mean for 2018, right? I mean, that's
so I'll give a two-prong answer. I mean, these things, I believe they're real and they're true, and I think Patriots fans have a right to be asking, how are we being served here? I mean, you love Jimmy G, but you gave him away for a second-round pick, and that guy, that was a big asset, had a lot of value there. Why didn't they get more? And, if you read the Shanahan quotes and that thing, they couldn't believe it was being offered. I think one phone call will give you this guy for a second rounder, and how quick can we do this? Just that kind of thing. And of course, a lot of success thus far with that. But to answer your real question on this is no. I mean, they're going to get what they want to get. In my view, it affects nothing. That in January they'll be certainly in the Final Four. I mean, they're going to be in the AFC Championship game. They're in the worst division in the history of sports, in my view. And it's not like they go 6-0. I'm not talking about beating the other three times or twice each, but that there's never a challenge in the division. They know showing up that they're going to win the division. This will be like, 16 out of 17 years or some ridiculous number. The other three are always reinventing themselves, new coach, new quarterback. And so that's a luxury to never have a challenge from within your division. And they certainly know how to run with that. Get the first round bye, second round home game, boom, you're in the AFC Championship. And given the strength or weakness of the conference, I expect that to happen again. So unless Brady somehow gets hurt, something unexpected happens, they will get what they want to get. And really, all this stuff, as real as it is, doesn't really matter for them getting to the Final Four.
So what was the sense in the room after you had your 4 follow-up swings of the bat, Dan? What was the sense in the room?
Everybody down there is sort of beaten down. They're sort of used to it, and I understand that. So, they just beat it out of you, and no one really tries, or it's just there's no no gain in pushing these sort of narratives, and he's good at it. And when you win, you get to do that. When you're getting kicked around in Cleveland, you don't get to do that. Talk to people from 20 years ago. So if you win, then you can be that guy and have control of the room and not be challenged on anything.
So I guess where does he rank for people that you've interviewed, press conferences, all time in the history of your Boston sports then, Dan?
Rich, I choose not to play the game most of the time. I mean, we're like the same age, and I've been through a lot. I respect him. And I think he's one of the greatest coaches who ever lived, and I would love to drive cross country with him. I think he's a fascinating character, but he is not going to give it up. He's never going to issue one more piece of information other than what is court mandated. And if you ask him if today's Wednesday, he'll just tell you that's traditionally the day that follows Tuesday, but he's not going to give in. And I understand that, and I don't harbor any bad feelings. This is the dynamic, and I've learned to live with it. I choose not to engage most of the time. But I thought today, first day back, 5.5 months since that game, I've been asked about it every day of my life since then. And I'm a sports guy. He's a sports guy. I just thought, okay, let's just try this one more time.
Dan, I like. Did you purposefully use the "do your job" line? I mean, that's his...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to come armed with these things, Rich. And I just felt, and that it's the truth, and that's what our job is, and we can't lose sight of the fact, as much as folks may not like it. But in this case, I will say this is really the first time there's been pushback from the fan base on really anything he's done. They had a 4th and 2 and a punt and different things, but this is the one that has stuck because there are fans here who really think that it cost them the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to go that far. But it was pretty, contested game. I mean, they lost the Super Bowl gaining 613 yards, the quarterback like 505, never punting, and they lost the game. Almost impossible.
Well, and then the last one for you, ask the poll question to Dan, because it's interesting that you say, Dan, that this is the most shaken the In Bill We Trust Foundation has ever been shaken. It really was about a minute from being shaken at the Super Bowl that Malcolm Butler made the interception, because without that interception, everybody would have been asking, why didn't Bill call
a timeout?
A timeout.
Why wasn't there a timeout? Yeah.
So ask the question.
I know. They either dodged one there or they were so brilliant and such a great read across the field of the nervous guy over there that they were genius again.
Ask the poll question.
Yeah, so Dan, what's the most shocking Super Bowl coaching move? The Seahawks throwing on the goal line there, or Bill benching Butler?
Oh, no. Pete Carroll retired the trophy with the ultimate act of stupidity where they said, Pete, you just won the Super Bowl? He said, I don't think so. I'm going to try a slant pass over the middle instead.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing that Malcolm Butler's involved in both?
I know. It's iconic.
Of these. Dan, thanks for the call. Very interesting press conference today, as always. Thanks.
Take care. Thanks, Rich.
You got it. That's Dan Shaughnessy, the Boston Globe.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.